Hey, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Black Agenda Podcast. It is our weekly roundup number 15, coming to you here on November 21st, a little bit later in the day at 7:30 instead of 4:30, and so we wanted to bring it to you in prime time, sort of. We know it's during college football, but we wanted to bring you the biggest news, as always, from this past week, and as always, I'm your co-host, Devin Dito. Have along with me my co-host, Adrian Guess, and we are back again to bring you all the news from this past week. Some of it which you may have heard about, some of it which you may not have heard about. So we hope you get some good information and some credible, trusted sources here. We sourced everything we got. So, of course, the first thing we have to talk about, of course, is the supposed election and the results of this said election and the refusal of one Donald J. Trump to concede this election and admit that Joe Biden is the winner and that he will not be the president on January 21st. So, Adrian, we've seen the President Trump, as usual, use weaponize really his Twitter account to try to misinform and disinform people. And of course, this week was no different with him tweeting out kind of in a weird way that Joe Biden won, but he cheated. But people were harping on the words he won. And so that was a big thing, at least say that there may be a process starting where Trump might actually finally be understanding that he lost this election and he's not going to be able to overturn the results. And so, Adrian, we after these tweets came out of Trump saying he had Joe Biden won, we saw a Republican governor of Arkansas actually say it was good to see the president tweet that, Joe Biden did win, and then even former President Obama said that he would remind Trump that as president, Trump is a public servant and a temporary occupant of the office. And so, Adrian, I think, it's weird to watch this play out because I think we all talked about it hypothetically, that Trump wouldn't go out necessarily in a clean and quiet fashion. Mm-hmm. But I still think people are shocked that it is now 2 weeks after the elections have been called and Trump is still yet to concede.
Well, Devin, I think a lot of that has to do with, Emily Murphy. She's just kind of being a little bit of a pacifier in this deal by not certifying the Biden-Harris administration and letting them actually begin the transition in an official position. And I think that may be, I don't know if they're maybe talking privately. I know that a lot of Democrats have asked to hear what's going on with some of her meetings and get some briefings on what she's doing. But I definitely think, Devin, that's probably the reason. He's got a lot of supporters, a lot of voters who just are begging and pleading with him to stay in the fight, stay in the race. I mean, when you got people like, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell saying, he has a right to, go due process in court. I mean, that's definitely not helping it. I mean, it's really good to see that some people are coming out and saying that it's good that we need to move on, like the governor from Arkansas. But I think until we just finally get more and more things like what happened in Georgia, where they just finally certified their votes, until we get more states to just go ahead and certify votes, electors just go ahead and meet. I think that'll be taking place next month. Mm-hmm. That's just going to make things a little bit more official. I think everybody realizes that Joe Biden is president-elect. I think everybody realizes come January 20th, whether or not Donald Trump wants to leave or he wants to be escorted. It's an either or. It's not a third option.
Yes.
There. I think that we've all been kind of on high alert about it, but constitutionally we have things in place to make sure that this won't happen. But Devin, going back to what happened in Georgia, I mean, you had the Secretary of State come out and say, I'm a Trump supporter. My guy didn't win. He just came out and clearly said that, no matter what I think about it, no matter how I feel about it, I mean, Joe Biden won by over 12,000 votes. I think whenever you press into the record there, I think the margin was about 0.73% error. I mean, it was less than 1% error. I mean, there wasn't like some widespread voter fraud or some widespread campaign to steal the election from Donald Trump. Georgians just stood up and voted.
Mm-hmm.
Devin, Georgians just didn't want Trumpism to continue, and that's what happened. But I really, really appreciate the fact that the Secretary of State just came out and said, I'm a Republican. I was with Donald Trump in the very beginning. I wanted him to win, but he didn't. So, Devin, there it is. And I'm hoping we can start to see more Trump supporters and more Republicans kind of come out of the cult and say, all right, he didn't win. Let's figure out how to work together. Yeah, that's a little bit of a reference to something I was listening to on MSNBC where Trumpism is kind of, modeled after a cult. So we'll leave it at that. We may even do a little episode on that.
Yeah, I think, yes, Georgia, certified their elections, and I think it's a weird dance that the Republican Party is trying to do with Donald Trump here. They don't want to come out and say, Joe Biden won this and you need to concede, but they also understand that the longer this drags on, the worse it's going to get for the rest of the country. I mean, you see it right there at the bottom of the screen. Joe Biden won Georgia by 12,600 votes. And I think the Secretary of State of Georgia even said that Donald Trump's attempts to misinform people about mail-in voting actually led to less Republicans voting by mail for the general election than voted in the primary. And I think it was a difference of about 20,000 people who voted by mail, Republicans who voted by mail during the primary, who didn't vote by mail during the general election. And so that's a big difference. That would have covered the margin there. So Trump has nobody to blame but himself. And so there was no widespread election fraud. Yes, there was a difference between this final tally that we have here and what we had, after, I guess, all of the mail-in votes and things were counted. But there was no widespread voter fraud. There just isn't anything of substance to these claims that they keep trying to, drum up here. I mean, in Georgia, Rudy Giuliani attacked them for not rechecking the signatures on mail-in ballots, not understanding that in the state of Georgia, when they count these ballots, they do check the signatures, but they also check the signature on the envelope and on the ballot when it first arrives. And then once they have checked it and verified it, they do throw away the envelope that it came in because they no longer need it. They've checked it, it passed, and they can count the ballot. So when they're doing this recount, they're not rechecking the signatures because they've already done that part. So the processes are there for this to be a fair and just election. And so, but Adrian, their attempts don't stop in just Georgia. They moved on to Michigan this week, and we've seen here, this is a few things that they're trying here to stop the certification of the results in Michigan. Number one, you got the Republican National Committee Chair, Ronald McDonald, and the Michigan Republican Chair who are urging the Elections Board to adjourn for 14 days to allow a full audit an investigation of so-called numerical anomalies. Again, there just isn't a lot of evidence to suggest that there's these widespread fraud, and then this was pretty telling too. Donald Trump even had some Michigan state lawmakers come up to the White House on Friday, and essentially we all know what was happening. He was trying to convince them that there was some kind of voter fraud and that they shouldn't certify the results to the election. But right after his meeting, you had two senators from Michigan put out a joint statement and clearly said they have not been made aware of any information that would change the outcome of the election in Michigan. I mean, these are two Republican senators who are clearly saying we have not seen evidence of widespread voter fraud that would make us think that Joe Biden should not be the winner of the election in Michigan.
And Devin, wasn't the vote count in Michigan like 157 plus
it's huge.
Votes? I mean,
it's huge. It was way more than Donald Trump's margin in 2016. I mean, Joe Biden has a bigger margin in all of these states, and yet here we are, trying to stop people from certifying the results. And Adrian, again, their attempts are failing, but it's the fact that they keep trying, and they know that these attempts are not going to work, and it's not really helping. And so these are really just last-ditch efforts to try to steal the election and change the results. They're not going to work, but it is giving people hope. The 70 million people who voted for Donald Trump, giving them hope that somehow, some way, this is going to work out and Donald Trump is going to end up being the president. And we need people to understand and realize on January 20th, or 21st, Joe Biden is going to be the president. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, your guy lost. We had to do this. Hillary Clinton conceded the day after the election. She did not wait a month or 2 weeks like Donald Trump is trying to do here. Like at a certain point, we just have to move on. And so, Adrian, they kept telling us they were going to go to the courts and they were going to fight this through the courts, but we've seen that not work out either. You know, we saw this week, we had a flurry of cases where they either lost the case or it was thrown out or they just withdrew it.
Exactly. And before we move on, one correction. Even though she might be acting like a clown and the whole party might be acting like a clown, I think I think it's Ronald McDaniel. I think you said Ronald McDonald for.
Did I say Ronald McDonald?
For the chairs.
Sorry, Ronald McDonald. He wouldn't be a part of that.
No, I was gonna say, yeah, she might be acting like a clown with all these baseless suits that they're trying to do, but we'll make sure we get her name right.
Hey, we have a viewer question here.
But on to go ahead.
Just, this is our first question. But somebody asked, do we trust Joe Biden? And I would say yes, I do trust Joe Biden. I don't see any reason not to, but
Yeah, I would definitely say. I mean, if someone's basing it off of the fact that maybe they're thinking that Joe Biden is going to be pushed and pulled by the liberal agenda of the Democrats, or maybe he's going to be doing stuff like the crime bill. But I mean, I think that when you got the option of Donald Trump and Joe Biden, I think it was really clear, and I think that Joe Biden is a man of integrity. So I would definitely say that I trust him. And I mean, you definitely don't have Joe Biden doing like what they're doing in Wayne County, where they're really trying to disenfranchise the black vote. I mean, you literally have the chairperson saying that they want to certify everywhere except for Detroit, and we know
that's
that
offensive.
We know Detroit is where a majority of it's African American, and I don't understand. I think her name is Monica Palmer. She and William Hartman, they're against certifying the election results. And Devin, the striking thing is the fact that their role in certifying the election results is almost ceremonial. It's not like you get to really take a position to certify or not to certify. It's just like going back to Emily Murphy. It's just one of those things that you're just supposed to do. I mean, it's apparent that Joe Biden won, that your state, you're just supposed to certify those votes. But I don't know what the game plan is. I don't know what the strategy is. I don't know, Devin, if the entire Republican Party's mission in whether it's Michigan or Pennsylvania or Georgia, I don't know if it's just to make people so afraid of election results that no one trusts the new administration anyways. Like, I don't know if that's the strategy. I don't know if they're just trying to dismantle democracy, and Donald Trump he's just such a petty of a person that because he lost, he doesn't want us to have a successful transition. He doesn't care if we have a successful 4 years, even going forward. He's so petty of a person because he lost that he'd rather, disrupt everything that we were having going towards American progress into being what we should have been. And it's just appalling that the Republican Party on the federal level, state level, and now we see even at the local level, they're starting to really play ball and really advocate towards voter suppression.
Exactly. And I think, just to finish off the topic as far as Joe Biden, they asked about the Patriot Act and Joe Biden, being part of drafting that and passing that. I think if you go back to, 2001, after the September 11th attacks, I think you're going to find very few senators who voted against the Patriot Act. I'm not giving him an excuse. However, I don't think it's totally fair to say, he was part of the Patriot Act and just hang that around Joe Biden when the Republican president in the office at the time, George Bush, and everybody else in the Homeland Security Department were pushing for those very things. And so that was a mistake. Voting for the war was a mistake. But you compare him to Donald Trump, who you can't trust every other word that comes out of his mouth. And you see what Donald Trump is doing. If Donald Trump really cared about what happened to this country, he would not be doing what he's doing right now. Because Donald Trump knows, and the rest of the Republican Party knows, there was no widespread voter fraud. So if you do love the country as much as you say you do, why would you go around criticizing Republican secretaries of states and election officials knowing that what you're saying is false and drumming up, all this misinformation and causing people not to trust the system that we've had in place for forever? We're the only country in the world that can really trust the fact that we will always have a peaceful transfer of power, just like Donald Trump talked about when he took office in 2017. He praised the Obamas for how they handled the transition. There was no Obama saying, well, I don't know if I trust Trump, getting in office because Russia may have helped him out. No, Trump was there like a few days after the election. Like, this is totally, totally different what Donald Trump is doing right now. And it's only going to hurt the country, not help, and drive people apart, because you have half the country listening to one person and one person only because they believe their guy lost and was cheated out of it, even though there's no truth to it. So I just want to make sure we hit those points that if Donald Trump really does love the country, he would just concede and run again in 2024 and just move on. It's not the end of the road for him. He can run in 2024. But, just to wrap it up here, as far as these last-ditch efforts to win, we have cases in Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, and Wisconsin. And I think we got a case tonight from Pennsylvania where the Trump campaign either lost or they withdrew the case. So, I think they may have won one case in court so far, Adrian. Like 1 out of 20. So if there was widespread voter fraud, they would have found it by now. And I think what you're seeing is more Republican officials start to get a little tired of this. They're saying okay, if you got proof, you need to throw it up there. You need to tell people. But, I think, Adrian, at a certain point, we're going to have to move on past this. And Trump is taking his anger out on people who work for him. He fired on Friday. He fired Chris Krebs, who was the one official who could proclaim that the 2020 election was the most secure in American history. And of course, if you have a president in office who feels as though he was cheated out of the election, and you go out and say that, that your clock's ticking. And so David Kennedy, who was a former hacker for the NSA, even joked that the cybersecurity experts were so bored this year because there was nothing really happening, thanks to the efforts of Krebs and other people who helped to secure the vote, particularly after what happened in 2016. This was, they say the most secure election ever. So, and then he got fired. So that tells you a lot of what's the mindset in the White House. And Donald Trump is looking for people who don't agree with him to fire them. So, and then I think our last thing here. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think on the job description or the application, you have to be a sycophant to be in the White House nowadays. You gotta really be behind this, Donald Trump. I mean, I love what the judge in Georgia said about the claim, silly and baseless. I mean, I think that pretty much wraps up what's going on with all these cases. And I mean, it's so silly. You got South Carolina, Lindsey Graham calling over in Georgia, doesn't even have any jurisdiction over there, but he's calling the Secretary of State. At least that's what's being alleged from the Secretary of State. Right. That's what the Secretary of State told the Washington Post. Lindsey is obviously denying it, but you got the Georgia Secretary of State and one of his spokesperson or assistants who was on listening, testifying to what Graham did. And I'm glad to see that there was an inquiry by some attorneys to kind of say, ethics committee, you need to look into this because this is very unbecoming of a senator. So, yeah, Devin, it's insane. And like I said, you definitely can see the efforts of the Republican Party. Like I said, you got people who don't even live in Georgia trying to call the Secretary of State and change and cancel votes.
I mean, I don't understand what happened. First off, I do not understand what happened to Lindsey Graham. Like, if you look back at Lindsey Graham in 2014, 2015, that is a totally different person than what we're witnessing right now. But yes, I think, Adrian, they're just desperate. And I think what it does say is it's showing the power that Donald Trump has on the Republican Party. They are so scared to step out of line one way or the other that he can literally say anything. Like when he was running, he said he could shoot somebody in the street and still get elected. He was right. He was absolutely right, because he has convinced all of them that Donald Trump controls the Republican Party's base of voters. And so they're scared to come out against Donald Trump because they don't want to feel the wrath of his tweets and his criticism. And they think that's going to lead to them losing in, say, 2022 during the midterms. And so it is really sad to see that objection and being an objective senator and putting your country over the party is essentially gone. Like, I mean, people liked Obama, but I don't think you would have seen Democrats doing this for him. You know, in 2016, trying to twist the arms of secretaries of state to overturn election results. I mean, like, we've never seen this before, where you're seeing one man turn and twist the gears of the government to work only for him because he lost. And that's what we're witnessing. You know, we have a process for a reason. You only get 8 years for a reason, or 4 years. You know, you're not guaranteed a second term. And so we really need to be careful with how far we're going to push this, how long we're going to do this, because you can scream voter fraud and you can say there are irregularities all you want, but I promise you, if Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump and Ronna McDaniel, I was going to say McDonald again. If Ronna McDaniel and those folks had actual tangible evidence of widespread voter fraud, they would have been in court yesterday, showing it to a judge, and this process would have been moved on. But you have judges that Donald Trump has appointed that are telling him his claims are baseless, and they're throwing the cases out. Like, that's happening for a reason, because there's no evidence. These are people Trump has appointed. This is not an accident. Unfortunately,
that can't be undermined enough, or understated enough that is. I mean, they're his people. I mean, it's not like they're just Democratic judges or anything. A lot of these are federal judges that he put in there, and it just really shows how fragile democracy is. How you can have years and years and years of precedent of a peaceful transition of power, of people recognizing that they're public servants and they're only temporary occupants of the office. But you've got one guy who just was such an outlier that he has really just changed the way we see the transition and what you can see, what may be coming in 2024, 2028. What if you have another president who loses and wants to do this and wants to continue? I mean, it's just
you're opening Pandora's box. I mean, anything goes, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. I mean, it's definitely anything goes at this point. But again, I'm glad to see that we've got a constitution. I'm glad to see that even though this temper tantrum, this charade, whatever you want to call it, it does have a timeline. It can play out, unfortunately, it can play out until January 20th. But after that, he's got to get out of there. He's got to shut it down, cease and desist, go to Trump Network or whatever else he's got to do. But we'll go ahead and wrap this segment up, viewers. We just really wanted to make sure, because there's a lot of tension going on in our country with this election, and it shouldn't be, because the results are clear. We have a great system of democracy, and we're all Americans. It's not a blue or red thing, so let's just do this together. So with that being said, we'll let you in on our first break, and we'll be back with you. Yeah.
All right, welcome back. So we're going to get into the virus because we have to, because right now the coronavirus pandemic is surging in the United States, and we have again set another record for COVID-19 cases. I feel like we're on a loop here, on a repeat from last week, because we said the same
Every
thing.
day.
Every day, yes, every day we're doing more tests, but we are also detecting more cases and we're getting more hospitalizations. So to put that into numbers here, on Friday, yesterday, the U.S. recorded about 193,000 new cases of coronavirus, and then we had over 1,800 deaths on Friday, which is the third day in a row that deaths have been over 1,800. They were hovering around 1,000 before the spike, and so we're starting to see that reflected. The new cases spike be reflected into the deaths, unfortunately. But like I say, we are also seeing a surge in tests. We did 1.9 million tests on Friday, which is almost 2 million. And so all of this is according to the COVID-19 data project, and we'll show you here. I have first graphic we can show to kind of give you an idea of what we're looking at. And so so you see it there, almost 2 million tests, 192,000 cases, and currently hospitalized is hovering around 82,000, which is far, far higher than our peaks in April and over the summer. And then, so that has put us now over 250,000 deaths this year from COVID, Adrian. And we haven't heard much from the White House. We've not heard much from President Trump. We still hear every now and then from Dr. Fauci, but Adrian, we did finally hear from the Coronavirus Task Force, which hasn't said anything publicly since July. And so they did at least acknowledge that the virus is spreading, but they wanted to, point out that a vaccine is on the way. And so Deborah Birx, she did say that the COVID positivity rate for the United States is hovering about 10%. And so I hate that they said this, but it looks like if we don't put more mitigation procedures in place, they're saying the country could see 2,000 deaths a day by Christmas. And they also recommended closing indoor dining and restaurants. And so, Adrian, we're all tired of the pandemic, myself included. We don't want to be inside. Nobody wants to be on quarantine or shutting things down. But we're going to have a difficult choice to make here coming up with Thanksgiving, 4 or 5 days away now, about if we're going to travel, if we're going to be in a closed space, in a crowded space with all our family members. And we're going to have to buckle down. We're going to have to make a hard decision to make sure that we can try to do the holidays safely, travel safely, and not spread it to family members and those who may be at a higher risk of being seriously ill. So I think it's a little bit of COVID-19 fatigue. And then also we know a vaccine is coming. So I feel like some people have gotten a little lax on the social distancing rules.
Yeah, and that's what Dr. Fauci was commenting on. He said that a lot of people feel that the vaccine's on the way, so we can take the mask off, we can gather, it's gonna be okay. But that's silly. I mean, that's like if you're in a war and you're fighting and reinforcements are on the way, you don't just put your guns up in the air and say, okay, we won now because reinforcements are on the way. I mean, that's just silly. And I mean, it just speaks to where we are. I mean, it's, Devin, it's just insane. The way our country is just really, I mean, Dr. Fauci said this is exponential growth. I mean, the way our curve is trending right now. I mean, there's no federal initiative to really get this thing under control. You got people closer and closer and closer to the president. His son, Don, Jr., was tested positive for the virus. Says he's totally asymptomatic, so we're praying that he has a good recovery. Nothing goes bad with that. And also Rudy Giuliani's son Andrew, special assistant to the president, tested positive for coronavirus. I mean, it's just one of those things, Devin. I don't know if Donald Trump gave it to all these people around him, but it just goes to show you got to have some basic hygienic steps in place when fighting this virus. I mean, you can't just tout and brag about not wearing masks and making fun of other people for wearing masks and not expect for things to happen. Um, I think, Devin, with the way things are going, I think what you see happen in states like Maryland, Minnesota, and Kentucky, I think you're going to start to see more and more states doing that. I mean, you got Maryland ordering all inside dining and restaurants to close. You got Minnesota potentially doing the same there. So yeah, Devin, I mean, you got a lot going on here.
Yeah, I mean, it's the virus is not going to go away, and we knew this. When we got to the winter months, we knew that this was going to be a tough time. This is normally flu season, so we knew that the virus is there was going to be an uptick naturally because of the cold weather. And you're going to be inside, but I think it's just we have to be diligent and we have to make sure that we take the proper steps. I mean, I don't understand the problem with wearing a mask. I mean, you're only going to wear it when you go to the store for like 10 minutes and you're going to take it off when you go outside. And so, I know some people are trying to say they're trampling on your rights and taking your rights away. I'm still trying to figure out what rights they're taking away. You can still go outside and do what you want. Stores have always been able to tell you how you look, what you wear when you go into the store. You have to wear a shirt and shoes and pants when you walk in. So wearing a mask is just, a part of that. Stores always have that ability when they're on private property. You have to abide by their rules. But I think it's just fatigue, honestly. I think people are just tired, and naturally they are, because we kept saying, we're going to hunker down for 2 weeks. We're going to flatten the curve, and that just didn't happen. And then people are now like, okay, we're going to shut down again for what? For how long? It's not going to totally get rid of the virus. I think people have learned that we can't totally just shut down the economy like we did in the beginning. You see it now here with the governors in Kentucky and Minnesota and Maryland, where they're shutting certain things down, particularly inside restaurants, bars, bowling alleys, theaters, but leaving open things like beauty salons. And if you can go to work, I think some are even still leaving schools open. And so I think we've learned a little bit. It's not going to be a total shutdown where everything is just closed. But until this virus is under control, the economy is going to take a hit. People are not going to go out and spend money like that. It's changed our behavior, honestly. And it's going to take a while for that to be undone.
And it definitely, what you said, Devin, about just changing our behavior definitely speaks to the fact that we really need more stimulus. I mean, we really need our government to step up. I mean, you got the Senate, who I think they're on vacation until after Thanksgiving, and that's just, to me, that's just appalling. I'm surprised we didn't talk about that in the show, but I mean, that's just, gosh, I just can't believe.
Must be nice, huh?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it must be nice. I mean, you got people who are about to get evicted, who are dying, who are in the ICU, but our Senate just went home for a vacation and didn't even pass any sort of bills to help out. You got the travel industry, Devin. I mean, they're saying that they got to have more help. I mean, you think about it. I mean, nobody's taking that risk to really fly that much. I mean, nobody's going on cruise ships. I mean, nobody's really renting cars and all that kind of stuff as much as they used to. I mean, you've got, I mean, in the travel industry, no matter how you look at it, I mean, that's a major arm of our economy. I mean, we're in America. We love entertainment. We love to get around. We love to enjoy ourselves. But with all the new regulations and restrictions, I mean, you've got governors and businesses that are just really calling on Congress to act. I mean, you can't have a state, go for bankrupt. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's not the same as our federal government where they can just issue bonds and say, we'll pay you back later. You can't tell your fire department that we'll pay you later after you put the house out. I mean, you got to have money. I mean, you got to have teachers being able to have an income so they can teach. I mean, I don't know what the strategy is here, Devin. I don't know what they're trying to do, but you got an airline industry aid that says the industry may need another $70 billion in aid. Man. I mean, that's a big number. I mean, $70 billion. But you got Mitch McConnell, who is not really wanting to do anything. I mean, he and most of the Republican Party is not really just trying to do anything with stimulus. They're basically saying we've done enough. Let's just play this thing out. I mean, over this past week, they were basically voicing that they don't see any signs that our economy or that our country needs a second, stimulus bill. And I'm just like, what do you mean?
Wow.
I mean, are you not? Do you need to
Wow.
go to what is it called? COVIDtracker.com or COVID tracker
Yeah.
Do we need to? Yeah, do we need to send them there? I just don't get it, Devin. I mean, the writing's on the wall. I mean, we've got to have some help. I'm not a big bailout person because I think the American people should, be getting the bailouts. But if you look at our economy, if you have major industries that are failing, you've got to stabilize it, or you're going to have a total collapsing of our economy.
Yeah, you will. And I don't think, nobody's, at least we're not advocating for more shutdowns. Nobody wants to see that. Small businesses have already been hammered by this thing. And the the Paycheck Protection Program didn't really work. It was a very expensive program, and it saved, I was listening, it could have been around a million, a million and a half jobs, but I think it was like a $500 billion program. So that's $500 billion. And so, we have to get more money to small businesses to be able to, if they need to, shut down their inside dining for 2 to 3 weeks at a time, and then be able to bring folks back when inside dining opens up again. And so we have to do something. Like, we can't just sit around and say, well, we don't want to pass more stimulus. And look, this is a problem I have with Donald Trump. We're seeing it on display, the power that he has over the Republican Party. The Republican Party controls the Senate, and he has Mitch McConnell there that can help him get past any bill he really wanted to. So if Donald Trump really cared about small businesses out there who are really actually struggling, he would be telling Mitch McConnell and everybody else in the Senate, pass a freaking bill. Stop playing around. Don't go on recess until the November 30th. Pass something. Or try to work with the Democrats to do something. But Trump is out golfing. He's not worried about this virus in the economy. He went golfing today. If you didn't know, he was supposed to be at the G20 summit talking to the rest of the world about the coronavirus response, and instead he decided to go golfing in Virginia for a couple hours. That's what our president is doing. He is literally MIA while the rest of us are over here struggling to get unemployment benefits. Like, it's two totally different worlds.
While people are dying. I mean,
while people are dying.
His Americans, I mean, his supporters, his voters. I mean, it's like I said, it's ridiculous that you've got stuff like this going on. I mean, you've got the hotel industry. I mean, they're I mean, they're suffering because who's traveling and staying in hotels like that right now? I mean, you've got Southwest Airlines, warning 400 employees, possible layoffs. I mean, you got the CDC that's recommending us to not bond together and go home during Thanksgiving.
That makes it so much worse.
I mean, it's 2020 is completely a different ballpark of events now. Thanksgiving and Christmas. I mean, those are just times that we all know and love. We all think about being with our loved ones. We all think about eating around a dinner table. Mm-hmm. Of course, not wearing masks or socially distancing. But the CDC is just trying to say, hey, you shouldn't be traveling for Thanksgiving. I mean, this thing is really getting bad for our country. And you think about it, Devin, Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas dinner, I mean, that's a mess for virus spread because you've got multi-generations together. You got people coming all over parts of the country together. I mean, I'm in California. I'd be flying to Mississippi. I mean, you just got so much going on to where you would lead to such spread of the virus. I mean, you think about it, Devin, every major holiday we've had, for 2020 has ended up being a super spreader holiday. Yeah. I mean, because we relax. I mean, we want to get out. We want to go barbecue on Memorial Day, 4th of July. We want to, pop our fireworks and get together. And every time you see these upticks, and I think what we're going to see going into 2021, I mean, like I said, you got Thanksgiving, you got Christmas, you got New Year's. I mean, those are three big holidays that we as Americans we love. We all go out and celebrate. I mean, who doesn't celebrate on those three holidays around other people? I mean,
Right.
it's really challenging because that's what we're used to. So yeah, Devin, that's not going to make anything better when you've got recommendations from the CDC saying, hey, you don't need to travel. That's just going to put a further damper on the travel industry.
Exactly. Yeah, it's going to be a big problem. And so the good news is there is hope on the horizon. And so we got a bunch of vaccine news this week. I think starting on Monday, Pfizer came out and said that their vaccine was 95% effective, which is amazing. You also had, I think it was Moderna, come out and say that their vaccine, they saw a good immune response, I believe, from their patients, particularly older individuals. And so that's good news. And so Pfizer actually, on Friday, yesterday, they submitted an application for an emergency use authorization for their vaccine. And they submitted that to the FDA. So it is possible that by mid-December, we could see the first few doses of a vaccine being sent out, to states to get out to, probably going to go to frontline workers first, the people who are treating the patients with COVID-19. But Adrian, I mean, by mid-December, we could start seeing it slowly come out. Now, Dr. Fauci and others have said we're probably not going to see widespread vaccine distribution until, January, February, March of next year. But this is good news on the horizon. Definitely something for us to look towards as we get through these difficult, Thanksgiving and Christmas. And so just to kind of, let you know about the Pfizer vaccine, it's 95% effective and it doesn't really have any side effects. They said with the folks that were in their clinical trials, about 4% of their participants had what they call a fatigue as a side effect, and then only 2% had headaches. And those were the only two real side effects that stuck out. So, I mean, we're looking at a pretty good vaccine here. It comes in 2 doses that have to be given 28 days apart. And Pfizer has said once the FDA approves their vaccine, they could be ready within hours within their own network to just start to distribute a vaccine. And they said they could have 50 million doses of their vaccine ready in the U.S. and Europe this year. So that's pretty big news that's coming. It's a ways off, of course, but I mean, that is good news, so again, don't necessarily let your guard down based on that news. We still have to get through Thanksgiving and December. And, I understand most of us are not going to die from coronavirus. I think we all know that. Donald Trump Jr. is probably going to be okay. But the issue that we're trying to avoid is giving it to other folks who could get potentially very, very ill. You don't know necessarily who you're giving it to. You could be asymptomatic and you can spread the virus if you don't wear a mask and you don't social distance. And so that's why you see these recommendations from the CDC and Dr. Birx and Dr. Fauci is telling people maybe stay home this Thanksgiving, cook at home, be in a smaller group. If you are going to go out and visit family, they suggest that you do it outside, where it's 6 feet, be 6 feet apart, wear your mask, and have maybe just one person serving your food. So it is possible to do a social distance Thanksgiving. But I will say, Adrian, I did see your governor, Gavin Newsom, apparently had like a picture where he was at a dinner party not wearing a mask and they were like in really tight corners and stuff. So we can't do that. You can't do that and then go and, enact more restrictions and you're not following your own rules. It does look pretty bad, but
yeah, I will say that I haven't seen that one. I hadn't been watching that one, but Devin, before we wrap this segment up, viewers, I wanted to, I guess, give a little bit of motivation if we're feeling so fatigued. Just talk to a nurse. I mean, I talked to a lot of nurses that work in the school who've worked, in healthcare. And I mean, I think if you need some inspiration, some motivation, some dedication, something to just really get you geared up to wear your mask, wear some hand sanitizer, or put on the hand sanitizer and stuff. I mean, call your local hospital. And if they're not busy, call North Dakota or call Mississippi. I mean, I guarantee you, there's some hospital you can call. There's some nursing home. There's some ICU facility. There's some medical facility you can call that's going to give you some motivation to why for why we should be taking this thing seriously, for why we should be buckling down even more to wear masks. Because I mean, around the country with Devin, we're having upticks around the country. ICU beds are starting to run out. I mean, you've got some states who are asking their asymptomatic medical workers to keep treating their COVID patients because you've got staffing shortages. So if you need some motivation, viewers, if you need something to make you feel that it's worth it to skip out on Thanksgiving, or it's worth it to sit 6 feet away from grandma at the dinner table this year, just remember, over 250,000 Americans are dead. Just remember, I mean, we've got over 10 million cases here, and they're constantly rising. So just wanted to leave that little bit of nugget because it is tough. It's hard. I mean, I don't like being in a studio. I mean, it's 350 square feet. Ain't really much to do here, Devin. But we gotta buckle down. We were in this together. We went to GameStop and we bought a new game to play on Xbox tonight. That way we can do our own thing and not get anybody else sick or killed. So let us all remember, viewers, that we were in this together, and the hope is on the way. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and take our next little break here and get into our third segment, where we're going to talk a little bit about the G20 summit and how some Republican voters are feeling. Viewers, let's get back into this. We want to talk a little bit about what was going on in the summit with the G20. So today we started the G20 summit. It was the first all virtual summit. I mean, everyone's going through a pandemic, so obviously our world leaders couldn't get together. The summit still had a host. It was hosted by Saudi Arabia. The talks were centered around the pandemic, obviously, because worldwide the pandemic has claimed about 1.37 million lives. And it's crippled economies everywhere. I mean, nobody's immune to this thing. I think even there were some reports coming out of Sweden that they were considering tougher restrictions because during the first wave, they didn't really see a whole lot. Mm-hmm. One interesting thing, Devin, the UN Secretary General said that while, I guess globally we've invested about $10 billion in efforts to develop vaccines and therapeutics, we still need another 28 billion to
My
get
goodness.
mass manufacturing and delivery around the world. And that's a really stark point, that I don't think everyone's been focusing on, because everyone's thinking more about their household or their city or their state, or we're thinking about the United States, our country. But worldwide, this is a huge endeavor to get everybody in the entire world vaccinated, because it's not like if we got the U.S. vaccinated, you're not going to have people flying internationally here. It's not like you're not going to have exports and imports and things traveling internationally. So this is, I mean, it's a huge problem, and I didn't really even think about the fact that it's going to be such an effort just to get this around the entire planet. I mean, it's a lot of people on our planet, Devin. It's going to be needing to be vaccinated. But when you look at the G20, of the 20 countries, nine of the nations are on the top of the list for COVID cases. I mean, that's saying something when you got 20 of the most powerful countries, and about half of them are really not handling this virus as well off as they could be, I would imagine. And of course, we, the United States, were at the top of the list. And when you look at, there's three leaders who've been infected by the virus. You got Brazil, you got the UK, and of course here in America, Donald Trump. So, and I'm glad that you plugged. I'm glad you plugged his effort. Well, not his efforts, but what he's doing.
Yes.
Donald Trump, that is, today, when all of our world leaders were supposed to be participating in a virtual meeting to talk about pandemic preparedness, Donald Trump wasn't there. And not only was Donald Trump not there, he didn't have any other American representation there. And America, I mean, we're one of the largest, superpowers, or the largest superpower. So come on, I don't get this, Devin. But hey, I mean, he's MIA. He's sore loser. But the G20 is underway, viewers, and just want to give you a little bit of news on that, because we got to remember that we're not in a bubble, so we got to be paying attention to what's going on in the world around us.
Exactly. And that's why, we should have, in my opinion, been more prepared for what was coming from China. I mean, you see a pandemic or a virus that is spreading around that country, and they locked down the city of 11 million people. You knew something was pretty serious over in China. So we should have been prepared here with testing and contact tracing rules ready to go, and we were just laid off the line in doing that.
Though, don't forget though, Donald Trump did fire the pandemic team that President Obama set up. So maybe that was the issue there.
Yeah, I mean he moved them to another. I think he moved them into like another department. But yes, they weren't in the White House. It was a White House pandemic response team, I believe, that I think was started under President Obama, and Donald Trump moved them over to some other department, essentially, and I think two of them may have actually ended up being let go. But I think there was a team that we had in China that was looking for these kind of viruses and things, and they were recalled and pulled out. But we should have been ready. But, I think in a greater sense, it just reflects the attitude that he has viewed this virus with from the very, very beginning, because Donald Trump knew that this was going to have an impact on his reelection chances. And it was going to have an impact on the economy. And so I think that's going to be a welcome sign to the rest of the world with the Joe Biden coming in, who takes the virus very seriously and is willing to sit down and talk about, strategic ways that we can prepare for the next one. For the next pandemic, we'll definitely not have all of our PPE manufactured in China, so we don't have to wait on it. That'd be something, Donald Trump did try to do that here, and in response to the pandemic, is have more of our PPE manufactured here, which is a big deal. That way we don't have to wait on it. But we have to be responsive in discussing with the rest of the world what's going on. That way we can detect these viruses earlier before they come over to our shores, and we just get kind of caught off guard with it. And so it's just, I think there's for some reason, Donald Trump just feels as though he cannot take this thing seriously. Even though in private, he could tell Bob Woodward that it's serious and that it kills people and it's more serious than the flu, but then he goes out in public and says it's the sniffles. There's a middle ground there to say it's serious. It's not going to kill everybody, but you can't take it seriously. And just to say you're going to go golfing when you're supposed to be talking with world leaders about it. It's just, I mean, come on. Like, he's been derelict in his duty, as president. He is president until January. He could at least try to leave the country in a better spot here to say, I really do care about the well-being, of the country. And I'm sorry that 250,000 people have lost their life due to this virus. But he's just incapable of doing that, unfortunately.
Not to mention with the fact that he's doing a summit with 19 other world leaders, he could do a lot to stabilize the tension that world leaders have with this transition. With his administration going out and Biden's administration going in, he could, if Donald Trump, as narcissistic as he is, if he doesn't want to play into the fact that he led our country into one of the worst disasters ever, well, he could at least talk about the transition, at least talk to them about the fact that come January 20th, America, we're gonna have a smooth transition, and we're still gonna be able to work together as a planet on this. But he didn't even want to do that. I'm like, if you don't want to talk about the pandemic, I mean, there's climate change. I mean, there's world hunger. I guarantee there's 1,000 other topics that these world leaders could be talking about.
Or healthcare.
Or healthcare. I mean, there's a lot of topics you could talk about that coincide with what's going on with this pandemic, because it's really aggravated a lot of other areas of weakness.
Yes, it has. It has been far, far reaching in its impacts. And so, we referenced earlier in the show about how there is a large swath of the population, 70 million people, who did vote for Donald Trump, but there's a lot of folks who still believe that this election was somehow rigged in favor of Joe Biden. And so we did want to touch on that a little bit. And we got a new, I think this was a Reuters and Ipsos poll. I hope I'm saying it right. It was an Ipsos poll and a Reuters poll that found that half of all Republicans believe that Donald Trump won the election, but that it was stolen by Joe Biden and the Democrats. And now in this poll, 68% of Republicans said that they were concerned that the election was, quote, rigged. And then, if you look in that, Adrian, I don't know what else we have to show to this 68%. I know we don't trust polls. So that could be 48%. Who knows? But there is obviously, with the MAGA million MAGA march that we saw in Washington, there is a very large part of this country that believes that Donald Trump was somehow cheated, or this election was rigged in favor of one sleepy Joe Biden because everybody just loves him so much they're willing to cheat for him. So I don't know what we do. We've had secretaries of state come out and say that there was no evidence of widespread voter fraud, that the court cases keep getting thrown out. People keep saying there are voting irregularities, even though there are plausible explanations for what they're witnessing. Even in Michigan, they keep saying, well, the poll books were off balance or whatever, even though there's a county right over that has even worse polling off balances, and they certified those results. They're not looking at states that Trump won, like Ohio. Like, what was going on with that? Joe Biden was leading at the beginning of the night and ended up losing by 8 points. Donald Trump is winning, small rural counties by like 80%. What's going on there? But they don't care about those things. They care about the states that Donald Trump lost, not the states that Donald Trump won. So to me, it seems like, I guess in the states that Trump won, the Republican officials and the election officials were okay. They didn't cheat. But all in these states that Joe Biden won, apparently there was just all kinds of cheating and voter fraud going on. I mean, the theory doesn't make sense to me. And if they had something, almost 17 days here after Election Day, they would have shown it to us by now. Like, it's not there. But I don't know what we do, because we have people on Fox News like Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity's who are peddling this conspiracy theory that somehow this was stolen. And then you have the Breitbarts and One American News, and now you got Newsmax that are now, again, pushing the same theory of widespread voter fraud. And then you have the other side, which is like, what are you talking about? So I don't know. We're living in two different Americas, information wise. We are living in two totally different Americas, and I don't know how you put this back into the bottle. How do you put this genie back in and get people to trust, what is factual evidence coming from people who are elected officials, who are both Democrats and Republicans?
I don't know, Devin. I don't know. It's going to be a trying time for our country. It's going to be hard to heal because going forward, we know that Trump is probably going to continue to have influence. So there's going to, I think Joe Biden's healing the nation or for the soul of America. It's going to be a long,
That's
ongoing
tough.
thing. It's going to be really, really hard because one of the things when you've got people who are just so passionate about the president, and that's fine. I mean, viewers, if you're a Trump supporter, you can feel how you want to about him. But I heard one interesting thing on the news this week coming from the Rush Limbaugh show. But there was one of his callers called in, crying, saying that that Donald Trump and Rush Limbaugh is the only thing that the conservatives have, is the only thing that the Republicans have. I mean, he was literally crying, saying that he'll die for his president. And I just thought, wow. I mean, not to call that person out. I mean, I don't even know where he was from. I mean, again, you can feel how you want to about who you support. But that's viewers. That's why I said that Trumpism is like a cult. I don't think there's ever been anywhere in politics and in leadership where a leader has been willing to allow their followers to say, "I'll die for you." I mean, this is not the military where people are going to war, and that's a responsibility where you may accept that you might die. I mean, these are people who are calling in saying they don't mind if they get COVID. They don't mind if they die. They don't mind if they take up arms to say this election is rigged. They start shooting up the place. That's where we are. And I get that some people feel that maybe we're talking about this too much. Maybe we're harping on Donald Trump a little bit, but it's not even about him. I mean, it's about the fact that here in America, our country is pretty racist, and that's what it comes down to. There's such great tension in our country that we had one person who just really brought all of that tension to the mainstream and really aggravated it to a point like never before, other than when we actually had slavery in America. And I mean, it's just really, really sad that we've got people who play into that so much. Again, you can feel how you want to about it, but I mean, it's very clear that this guy is just playing into nothing but conspiracies. I mean, you got Rudy Giuliani, who's supposed to be America's mayor, who's supposed to, have been, I think one of the lead attorneys in the district court, Southern District of New York. I mean, this guy had a lot going for himself. He actually would have, passed away and had a memorable legacy that was going to be, I guess, in the right light. He will be remembered by, being, I don't know, maybe a traitor to the law, a traitor to being a lawyer, just because this guy is just basically lying. I mean, Devin, I know everybody, viewers, I know everybody saw the pictures of his mascara or his whatever was running down. I guess
That
his
was hair dye.
his hair dye or whatever was running down his face. And I mean, it's just insane. I mean, I think he said something about how Hillary and Chavez and somebody had a conspiracy to steal the 2020 election, and basically there's a bunch of the other lady, I can't remember her name, but there's a bunch of software that just flips votes. I mean, it just software
Dominion.
is so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the software is just so good that it can just flip millions of votes all over the place, and that's why Joe Biden is leading by 9 million votes, because those machines just flip millions of votes and nobody even knew about it. Come on, like that's why Rudy was up there sweating so much. That's why he couldn't talk right. That's why he had to reference my cousin Vinny, because he didn't have anything else better to talk about. Like, this is where we are, Devin, where we got people who are just really perpetuating falsehoods, and that's so damaging to our democracy. That's why it's going to take such huge efforts for us to get out of this, because you've got people who are somewhat credible sources to the conservative mainstream voicing all of these opinions, like you said, on Hannity and Carl Tuckerson. But he did, I will give him credit, Devin. He did speak out against what
very little credit, but yes,
a little credit in the sense that he did say that he tried to ask them for evidence, and they got so annoyed that they told him to stop reaching out because they don't have any evidence.
Sidney Powell, yeah,
right.
Yeah. I mean, come on, like that's why I say if they had it, they would show it. They would have showed the evidence. Like Kayleigh McEnany went on Fox News and held up all these supposed affidavits, and I think people look through them and they just say these folks don't understand the election process. I mean, like, there's no evidence in there of this massive voter fraud that got Joe Biden elected. I'm sorry, it just did not happen. Donald Trump is lying to you. He's doing it for his own benefit. He doesn't care about the rest of the country. He's doing it for his benefit because I think he's afraid of what's going to happen to him once he gets out of the White House, when his legal troubles are going to come back to haunt him, and all those statements that he made while in the White House and all those tweets are going to come back on him, and he won't have any power to do anything or to control anybody like he's doing right now. So I think he's desperate to try to keep up this charade and say, look, I'm fighting, and they're trying to come get me, and there's a deep state, and there's a QAnon conspiracy he's got wrapped up in. I mean, I don't know how we get back. I really don't, like you say. I mean, like, what do you do? Like, people have to get off social media and talk to people in real life and stop sharing false information. I mean, like, I don't know what else we can do, but it's going to be a long road back to whatever you call normal if we can get back there. And so we'll leave the voter fraud conspiracies right there. If you have any more comments as far as voter fraud, if you think there was massive voter fraud, let us know in the comments. Leave us a question, or let us know what your thoughts on as far as whether you think Joe Biden is the president legitimately, or if you think Donald Trump was cheated out of it. Please tell us why in the comments, and we'll try to respond to you during the show. So we're almost done. We're going to come back. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to get into some quick hits here. We have some news about Kyle Rittenhouse. We have some news about the Toronto Raptors, and also some sad news about Bobby Brown Jr., who passed away this week. So we're going to talk about him, and we're going to leave you with some funny news at the end. So stick with us. We're almost done. We're going to come right back. All right, welcome back. So we're going to end the show as we always do with some quick hits, which is some news you may have heard or may not have heard during the past week. And so we always like to leave you with little nuggets of information about some different stories. So the very first one we want to talk about is Kyle Rittenhouse. So for those who don't know, Kyle Rittenhouse is the teenager who was arrested in Kenosha, Wisconsin for shooting and killing two protesters. He was arrested. And so he has been in jail ever since that incident. And so he actually finally posted bail on Friday. He had a $2 million bail that he posted. And so he was actually really able to post that bail because he got a lot of donations from a lot of, supporters who were on the conservative side. In particular, one of his attorneys, his name was L. Linwood Jr., one of his attorneys was seeking a lot of donations, and they got enough to pay a $2 million donation. And just to give you some background on Mr. L. Linwood Jr., he was part of a lawsuit in Georgia that tried to overturn the state's results of the 2020 election. In that case, as we all know, was thrown out by a judge, and the judge called it silly and baseless. And so Kyle Rittenhouse has been released from custody on bond. And right now, they say his next hearing is scheduled for December 3rd. So we'll have some more news coming out about that. Looks like in about a couple weeks, we'll be able to give an update on that case.
All right, and on to a little bit of sports news. So it looks like, according to CBS Sports, the Toronto Raptors are actually going to be playing south of the Canadian border this year. For the 2021 season, they're going to be in Tampa Bay, playing in the looks like the Alameda Arena, home of the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Canadian government actually ruled that due to the pandemic and due to looks like their star Doug Smith not going to be able to actually play in Canada this year. But the team, had to switch gears, and they're still going to be able to play and participate in the NBA. And it's glad to see that they're going to be able to find a home for the 2021 season in Tampa. But it kind of just goes to show that this pandemic is definitely changing the way we got to do things. They were really concerned about travel restrictions that exist, obviously, with the pandemic. So they wanted to make things a little bit easier for fans with, participating in the games and keeping up with them. So I guess Toronto is going to be Tampa for right now.
The Tampa Bay Raptors. And for those of you who keep up with hockey, the Raptors will be playing in the home stadium of the Tampa Bay Lightning. So for those sports people out there who know those teams. So our next story is a sad one coming out of Los Angeles here. But we did get some reporting. I got this from thegrio.com. So it looks like it's been confirmed the son of famous musician Bobby Brown Sr., who used to be married to Whitney Houston. Bobby Brown Sr.'s son, Bobby Brown Jr., passed away on Wednesday at the age of 28. He's really young. It's my age. And so it looks like Bobby Brown Jr. was reportedly experiencing what they said was flu-like symptoms before he actually passed away in his home in Los Angeles. And so far, according to TMZ, the sources say they're having an investigation into his death, but there were no drugs found at the scene. And right now, a toxicology test is being conducted. But family members believe he did not have coronavirus or COVID-19. That was the first thing I thought about when you hear flu-like symptoms. But yeah, Adrian, this is a really tragic story because you may remember back in 2015, Bobby Brown Sr.'s daughter, Bobby Christina, died. And she had a tragic death. And she was 22, so she was even younger than Bobby Brown Jr. So Bobby Brown Sr. has been catching it here lately. He's lost both of his children here in the last 5 years, and Bobby Christina Brown was actually the daughter of Bobby Brown and Whitney Houston. So that was her half brother who just passed away. So some sad news out of the music world there. Bobby Brown Jr. 28 passes away on Wednesday.
Yeah, very sad. I mean, it's, you definitely never want tragedy, no matter how young, how old. I mean, it's really unfortunate. It just reminds me of, I got a text message of a student at a school that I was working with where they had passed away of cancer. And I mean, it's just really, really tough. Where nobody's immune to accidents, injuries, sickness. I mean, it's just one of those things we all got to be kind of keeping ourselves safe and ready. A little bit more news that's sad and unfortunate. We've got on Friday night, a man opened fire in a suburb Milwaukee mall, injuring 8 people, including a teenager. Again, Devin, we've got guns in the hands of the wrong people. We know that guns don't kill people; people kill people. But we've got to have better restrictions on what's going on. Fortunately, officials have reported no fatalities. And currently, they're searching for the man in his 30s, but they don't have any leads or suspects yet. So, looks like the gunfire was reported around 2:50 on Friday, and police believe it was not random, but was a result of something. Looks like the result of
an altercation.
Okay. I was about to say, for some reason, my notes, viewers, I couldn't read it here. My lights off, right? Yeah, there you go. Altercation that took place. I was trying to figure out what I had typed there, but yeah, there we go. But yeah, there's more violence, happening. I know, I'm sure there'll be more and more coming out of this news as to what the motivations and things like that, and we'll make sure to kind of try to keep you in the loop of what's going on.
Definitely. So On to some more upbeat, happy, funny news here. The first one here is a man has has sold a meteorite that crashed through his house, through the roof of his house, and he sold that said meteorite for over $1 million. And so this is an Indonesian man who sold like I said, a meteorite that crashed through his roof. His name is Joshua. He said he was working outside when it crashed through, and the rock weighed around 4.5 pounds. And they say it's a rare variety, and they actually valued it over a little over 1.8 million. So he could have gotten almost $2 million for a 4.5 pound rock that crashed through his roof. And so far, the buyer is supposed to be an expert, I guess, on meteorites, and it was resold to a fellow U.S. collector here. So big windfall, man, for a rock falling through your roof. Got to be the world's most expensive, rock being sold. So, yeah, Indonesian man got very lucky. He got $1 million that crashed through his roof, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's like, I love the fact that we've got experts on meteorites and collectors of meteorites.
Telling you.
I didn't really know that. I didn't know that people just had so much money that they could waste on, spending on meteorites. But again, if you are in the 1%, I mean, you do have billions of dollars. So, on to another little bit of interesting news. And honestly, Devin, when I saw this story, I didn't even know horses could weigh this much. I used to ride horses a little bit, but apparently this was a horse that was in a Canadian sanctuary that had fallen into a mud pit, nearly weighing the horse nearly weighed about 1,500 pounds. I mean, that's a huge horse. I can't imagine trying to ride that and that get the bucking on you. But the horse was trapped for several hours in a muddy hole. Tracy was the owner of the sanctuary. Said the horse looks like he's a male, 11 years old. Fikesy, I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, but fell into the mud pit. She called firefighters and tried to, firefighters tried to get the horse out, but they couldn't. And Tracy didn't want to give up, so she tried to, rally up some friends. Even called the Canadian Mounted Police, which the police call some tow trucks. That's what they were missing, Devin. You got an animal that weighs 1,500 pounds.
Yeah.
You got a car on your hands. You're going to need some tow trucks. So fortunately and thankfully, the tow trucks were on the scene. They got the horse out of the mud pit. So, yeah, I guess if something like that happens, you better be prepared and ready to go.
I wonder what the horsepower was on that thing. 1,500 pounds. My goodness.
Like I said, that's a thoroughbred right there. I don't know what breed horse she's got at the sanctuary, but she needs to stop feeding them so much.
It's in the water or the grass, as they say.
That's right.
All right, viewers. So we are at the end of our show, and so that is going to do it for weekly roundup number 15. As always, we enjoy bringing you the news, bringing you some good stories, giving you some information that is credible and trusted. We get it from trusted sources. So we just try to inform people. That is our goal here, is just try to make sure that, our viewers are informed about what's going on in the world around them. And we try to explain it in a way that everybody can understand. So you can turn this on and watch it and you know what's happening. So we appreciate you, sticking with us here. It's about almost 9 o'clock. So it's our latest episode. But we do appreciate everybody sticking with us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube this time. So before you go, we always ask you to like, share, and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Definitely share this video if you're still watching. Share it on your profile. Tell people to watch. Check us out. And Adrian, that's our money man there, so you can let the people know how they can donate to us and help us keep this going.
Yeah. As always, we would love to be able to have you to donate to us. Remember, you can go to Patreon. That's patron.podbean, PODBEAN /Black Agenda Pod. Again, that's patron.podbean /Black Agenda Pod. The easiest thing to do, you can go to our host. Our host is Podbean. You can always listen to our episodes or our podcast there. There's a little button you can click on to go to our Patreon portal, and it'll show you all the good stuff in there that we got for you. So, yeah, we're trying to do great things. We're trying to eventually launch a nonprofit, do a lot with the community, and we can't do that without resources, because here in America, money rules things. So we've got to have that.
That is absolutely right. So, as always, we appreciate bringing you the news. Make sure you listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to your music. You can find us. Our podcast, we got all sorts of different guests. We just had a great episode that dropped on Tuesday with Michael W. Twitty, who is a culinary historian and decorated author of the book called The Cooking Gene.
And James, don't forget, Devin, James Beard.
James Beard Award winner.
First black one at that. So
yes.
Got to highlight that one.
Definitely. So if you can, search us on Spotify. Search us. It's called The Black Agenda. His episode is called The Cooking Gene with Michael W. Twitty. So go and listen to it. It's a great episode. Like I said, we have content for everybody. We have things about the Second Amendment. We have things about gun rights, food, you name it. We got it. Go listen, check us out, and share it with your friends and family so we can all be informed and have very important conversations. So for me and Adrian, thank you for watching us, and we will catch you next time.